in a minute. All right, welcome. We are getting going with our week 3 of Novel Bootcamp. Hi, Lou. I think I tagged the wrong Lou. I'm glad you got into the channel. All right. So, this week we're going past first week stuff, which is we're through our word count and basic kind of structure, and we are looking now at cast of characters, dynamics, character archetypes, and things like this. If you have not signed up for your upcoming bootcamp session, you can do so at these links. You can just type !bootcamp in the chat, and there you can get the sign-up sheets. Let us know that you are interested in writing an upcoming feature, pilot, or novel. Sorry, hopping a little bit. We have the upcoming sessions just there. We are wrapping up some of these pretty soon. Feature is almost done. We just wrapped up the final week of Feature Bootcamp, and we are starting a new one. We have new themes. The new theme is going to be post-apocalyptic dystopian TV. And for movies, we're doing action horror, sort of like supernatural monster hunting kind of stuff. Should be a fun October Halloween seasonal theme there. And Novel Bootcamp is continuing in this time slot, which is Saturdays 12 to 2. There is no genre theme for the novels, but we will go all the way through the end of the year. So this novel will be wrapping in December. All right. I think we just saw Vicky join the wrong room. I hope she manages to get into this channel. Or maybe join on Zoom. We are also on Zoom for anybody looking. All right, so today's week 3. And from here towards the end, basically the goal is to be writing between 5,000 and 10,000 words per week. I would be aiming to write about 1,000 words a day if you are trying to write a novel by the end of the year. And ideally, you've also finished out your outlining and pre-writing and all that work that you put in towards figuring out what's going to happen in my book before I actually start the pages. We have a whole sequence of classes that just goes into figuring out the story. So we're a little more propulsively oriented in the Novel Bootcamp at this point, where we're like, you got to be writing pages week after week, putting the words in and trying to keep up with your word counts. So today we will, of course, check in to see who has been keeping up with their word count or if you're falling behind. And of course, any other questions that you would like to ask about. We're also looking at characters today, so that's going to be character introduction type of stuff. If you have a character introduction from the manuscripts that you're working on that you'd like to share, then we will have we have a slide-in segment where we will just be sharing those, and you can tell us about some of the key characters from your work as well. All right. So for the moment, we are just going to do our check-in. So we'll start. You can tell us, what is your progress? Any questions? Are you hitting your word count goal? Is anything affecting your momentum? Anything that we can help with right now before we move on? And I know Joyce said she was driving, but Joyce, if you're able to speak up, can you give us an update? I can also check back later with you if you need.
Actually, I'm a passenger, so we're good. I started writing again. I kind of got behind with like some fatigue stuff, but I only got 1,000 this week. But I'm kind of back in the groove, so I see that picking back up. No more hurdles, creative blocks. I kind of got past my fatigue thing, so I think I'm back in it.
Great. All right. Do you have an estimate, maybe just like an overall progress? Like, do you have a percentage that you would say you are?
Yeah, I'm only at like 16,000 words. Remember, I started kind of from last camp, so it might be considered like a little ahead, but I want to keep pushing, so that I didn't meet the October 7th goal for my sister's birthday, but uh, there's always Christmas.
Right.
So,
All right. Thank you for that. Let's hear from Luke. Go ahead.
Hey everyone. So I'm still working on my fan fiction. I'm about maybe, well, I want to say like maybe 50K words in. But this week I haven't been able to write much. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I have the notes for the next chapter, but I'm trying to like add more narration to it and get the tone right. And so that is kind of not easy for me. Trying to get all like the details and the texture in is harder for me than just dialogue. So
Okay, great. Well, at least 50,000 words is really good progress. So sounds like you're getting through it.
Yep.
Thank you for the update. Luke, do you want to give us an update on your progress on your writing projects?
Uh, Slow and steady. Few pages per day, just plugging away. Not working on novels right now. Just want to participate in the character discussion. That's one of my favorite topics.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Nacho, you want to tell us about your novel progress?
Yeah. So I had a chance to go over my synopsis, and Connor gave some very helpful feedback, and you
Did
know,
he?
yeah.
I'm Connor, so
So
it's funny to hear myself referred to in third person.
Yeah.
Second person. I don't know what that was, but it was just funny. Go ahead.
The artist formerly known as Connor.
Yes. Now just
Um,
unpronounceable symbol is my current name.
exactly. Um, yeah, so I feel pretty good about it. And just yeah, trying to find time every day to write. And I feel like it's at least even if it's, I'm sure that obviously there's issues and there's problems in every story, but like it's at least solid enough to just kind of, keep going with the draft, and it serves as a nice, roadmap or whatever.
Great. Okay, so is that synopsis? Are you saying you have scene cards in addition to that, or is that synopsis that I was looking at? That's your kind of.
That's all I got.
That's all you got. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I had a story beats outline, but this is a little bit more detailed from
Right.
that.
Okay. Well, if that's
Um,
enough, if you
mhm.
find that's all it takes to be writing great scenes and getting through the book, then that's clearly working. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Mhm.
My own pre-writing documents are usually like a lot more sort of exact, like to the 1,000 words. I'm like 2,000 to 3,000 words. This happens, but that's not everyone's preference. So I can see how it might be a little better for some to leave it a little more open and have just like maybe a 5, 6 page outline that you can draw from and kind of unspool scenes from that, as opposed to saying, well, now I'm on part 56 out of 75 or whatever. All right, thank you for the updates there. Let's hear from Sage.
I finished.
Yay!
Yay, 50,000 words, 17 chapters. Yeah, that's all good now. I'm going to go through and edit for a little while.
All right, great. So I think you will. Do we have a? What's our procedure, Nacho? Do we have some sort of giant cooler full of Gatorade that we are able to decant somehow?
Yeah. If you throw the draft in the documents channel, I guess we should call it documents assignments. I don't know.
Sure. Don't we have a? Do we have a role for that?
Yeah, I'll do that once I edit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Sounds good.
and also, you get something today. Hold on a second.
Oh, I don't even know what it is. Coins? Or does he get? Is there like a? We should at least have an animated GIF of some kind of some balloons descending or something. I feel like.
Would you like an Oreo pizza?
Oh, great!
Does that exist? Does anybody want that?
There it is. We have.
Oh, it's time to tell the tale of the Oreo pizza, Connor.
Yeah, the Oreo pizza is actually well, first of all, there are Oreo pizzas you could get at Domino's at one point, which was just basically like cookie crust with Oreo. It was just like a giant cookie. But the principle of the Oreo pizza is just one that we brought up before in reference to this idea of promising one thing and then you give the reader something better. It's still like the same sort of thing they wanted, but it's even more exciting than they could have anticipated it to be. You know, it's a pizza box and you open it, it's an Oreo pizza inside. That's kind of the idea there. That's why we have the special emoji for it. Anyway, that's your pizza party. Order yourself a slice. Congrats on finishing
Right.
your second book.
I will. Yes, thank you.
Alrighty.
So now I can start every sentence with as a novelist, right?
Yeah, as a serial novelist, because you've now
Nice.
completed 2. I guess maybe striking 3 times as a serial. Right now it's just a like pattern or whatever. But yes, you are indeed. And I swear we had a role for it. If not, I will add it after this because I think like finished boot camp should be a little tag you have on your profile. Nacho says you better say the cat and now eat the Oreo pizza. They have Oreo Reese's now, so that could even be factored in somehow. You can get them at any 7-Eleven. All right, Vicky, you want to give us an update as to your progress on your book projects?
I am doing 2 stories right now. One is in Spanish because that one I'm doing with a friend that she's kind of helping me with that one. Like it's a revision, so that one I'm not counting it.
Okay.
But the other one I'm doing is a thriller in a way. I am still figuring out, but it's kind of thriller fantasy, and I'm just starting with that one. So that one's like in the beginning stages of being created. It's like my side project while I'm doing corrections on the other one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. Alrighty, so well, look at that. We have a full group now. Thank you for joining, folks. And I think I tagged all the ones I could. There were a few names I typed in, and then it didn't come up. So I thought maybe they either weren't in the WordCamp. They hadn't joined WordCamp yet, maybe. I'm looking at the list now. And is Dakota here? No, he's not. Okay. All good. Well, we still have the sign-up sheet, so let us know if you are. You can add your name onto it at any point if you decide to follow along with the milestones of the novel course. And this does wrap up in December, so we'll finish your book by the end of the year. Okay, so let's get going. Let's look at our overview for today. So we did our check-ins. We'll start with characters, talking about what makes characters memorable and important and how do they fit into a cast. We have a bunch of new character intros from different books to look at today, including Jungle Book, Lord of the Rings, Raymond Chandler, and Bronte. We will discuss designing a cast, and I would actually recommend, if you're really into this idea, to go back last week to our class that we did on designing casts for animated shows, because we did a lot on not only character role and archetype, but also just getting into the visual look of characters. This thing that we're working on now, a novel, is an inherently non-visual medium, so we have to kind of balance and manage our characters a little bit differently. That we remember them in a different way. Visuals still play a part, but they are not the basis of the communication of the ideas here. So we'll look at designing a cast, introducing a character, and we will have that time to share a character introduction from your book. So I would have that copied and ready to paste if you want to share that, either just for fun or if you want feedback on it, either one. Okay, so let's start with some of our favorite characters from novels. And I would love to hear not only what sticks in your mind about them in terms of their look, you know, like if there's something about them that visually sort of evokes an image to you, but also in terms of personality, dynamic, or anything else that really stands out to you and strikes you as one of your favorite characters. Ideally, let's try to stick to novels right now if you can. But if it is really something that, if you just can't get some character from a movie or show out of your head, you can, of course, include them as well. So I think I'll get us started with one while you guys are thinking, because I know it always takes a minute to think. So start thinking, who are some of those memorable favorite characters from books and why? Even right here, we can see the Blade itself, which I got really into Abercrombie books this last couple of years. And Joe Abercrombie is a fantasy novelist, really known for being a character writer. In fact, of his books, some people, the common criticism is there's no plot. It's only just characters doing stuff. And if you read some of them, like The Blade itself, the focus is much, much more on the development, the moods and emotions and personalities of the characters, much more so than it is focusing on any one grand series of events. There is some kind of quest going on, but the details aren't that important. It's like a really specific style of fantasy writing where it's like, we know the characters are basically on one trip for most of the book, and their progress in that trip is not as important as their progress is in their relationships. And that's just kind of what is the major selling point of his series. People remember the characters from his books more than the plots themselves. And off the top of my head, I can name like 5 incredibly memorable characters just from that one series that over time they change, they get older, some of them die, some of them don't, some of them get maimed. Some of them, they get injured. Their ability level changes in various ways. Some of the most memorable characters are like Shivers, we could say, from the Blade itself, who later shows up in the Before They're Hanged books, or sorry, in the Best Served Cold, which is a different book by that same author. So he's a character that starts of lower importance, but then becomes a major POV, and it's always great to see a character go from just knowing them in one smaller context towards us moving them more towards central protagonists. So you start out with like a simpler image of them, but then that image deepens, and we learn more and more about him as the book continues to peel back layers, and you learn all about this character's backstory, and you learn about who they are in different situations. You see them at home, you see them fighting, you see them at work, you see them relaxing or resting. You just really in this series get to examine every aspect of these characters' personalities, and if nothing else, readers are reading for those scenes of the characters just hanging out and shooting the breeze together. That is a major selling point, and it can be of yours too if you really know how to write people and distinctify them and really find different voices and make them feel distinct and interesting. So Blade itself would be my book that I think has some of the most amazing characters. Just even in the central cast, we have Jazal, we have Glokta, and we have Logan. And just that trio is like the central core of that first series. And among them, they are some of the most complex and flawed and self-contradictory and just interesting characters to watch do stuff. Somebody else want to volunteer with what is one of your books that you think has some of your favorite characters, or what are some of your favorite, most memorable characters from novels?
How about Arthur Dent?
Okay, let's go with Arthur Dent. Go ahead.
Quintessential everyman. He's always got his robe. He's always got his towel. He's always just British, and that he's kind of annoyed by everything. Sorry, Becky. Um,
Kind of a grumbler.
what else? He's kind of a grumbler. But I know we like him. He's kind of, I don't know, pessimistic and cynical, but can we blame him? I mean, his world blew up and the universe is a shit show, and he's just sort of along for the ride.
Yeah, he's a relatable everyman hero that just sort of wants a sandwich and a Coke and to go to bed. Like that's pretty much he has like the simplest goals because his goal is kind of just find a way to get back to normal. Like find some way to like figure out what I do now, figure out what my life is now that the entire world's been destroyed.
But he's much less interesting. The real star of the show is Marvin, the robot, the chronically depressed android.
Yes, we love Marvin, we love Trillian, we love Zaphod, these kind
They
of
thought
when you have a more milquetoast central character, it allows you to kind of go a little wackier and crazier with your side characters. Which does lead at some points to what I call Luke Skywalker syndrome, which is this problem where you kind of pile all your interesting traits into the side characters to the point where your main character feels like they're either barely in the story or they're barely defined, which can be kind of a problem. But in certain cases, it does work, especially if your main character is like the grounded one that keeps things in balance and like we calibrate our expectation of normal based on them. Or especially it's useful if we have them to comment on how normal other things are. So if you have this kind of milquetoast main character, then often they make for a good sort of audience surrogate or audience insert kind of character that acts as our point of perception within the story. All right, somebody else?
It's an older book series. I don't know whether you Americans know it, but it's quite famous in the UK. The book series is Mallory Towers, so we're talking Enid Blyton. So what's that? Kind of between the wars. So like 1930s, I think. But the main character in Mallory Towers is a girl named Daryl. Oh, I forget her last name. Daryl Rivers, and you can see it's just been made into a TV show, but it is a very old children's book series about a boarding school. And what I like about the character and what drew me in as a kid about the character is that she's not a like all of the kids, they're girls, but they're not how girls were always portrayed at the time. So we've always had this issue in children's literature of girls being portrayed a certain way. Boys could always get into trouble, but girls had to be sensible and behave. And Daryl Rivers isn't sensible and doesn't behave. Like, she's not naughty on purpose, but she's mischievous. She gets like into trouble. She goes to places where she shouldn't do. She gets dirty and mucky, and all the things that good little girls shouldn't do. So it just kind of was it's a nice, and yet she's still lovable, and everyone in the dorm likes her, and the school teachers like her. It's just a really uplifting portrayal of girls in those kind of books.
Great. Thank you for that. Looks like they've done a bunch. If it's an older series, looks like there's a bunch of re-releases with new art. I usually
Oh
don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
It's still hugely popular. And as you can see, the picture of all of them together, it's recently been made into. I mean, it's been made quite a few times, but it's recently been made into a BBC show, so it's become popular again. But this is like a classic. Most girls in the UK would have read these at some point.
Right. Looks like a stage show too.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anyone else want to share some favorite book characters and share why?
I've got one you've never heard of if no one else wants to go.
Let's give him just a second. Someone? Oh, go ahead, Vicky.
In my case, it would also be a story that no one knows. It is kind of character focused. The House of Spirits. It's a Chilean novel. Literally, it is kind of like similar, but not the same as 100 Years of Solitude. But this one is like of the women of the family are the central focus, and all the characters are really interesting considering the time period they go through, including like many historical events from my country, and they are really like well designed depending on like the eras, and you see the differences, and kind of like you remember all of them in the end.
Okay, great. So ensemble cast that moves through the generations, I would guess. A lot of books of this genre kind of follow a family through many years. All right. House of Spirits. Thank you for that. All right. Luke, did you want to shout yours out before we go to the next slide?
Yeah, super iconic, super memorable. Aloysius XL Pendergast. This is a recurring character in the Preston and Child series. He's a very strange sort of amalgam of all these different things. He's kind of like a secret agent. He's like pale and corpse-like and has white hair, and he drives like a white Rolls Royce, and he's incredibly competent and good at everything, kind of like Sherlock Holmes is good at everything. But I don't know, just kind of like hilarious, like and memeable, but he's interesting and memorable. Probably not my favorite though.
Thanks for that. Yeah, wow, there's a lot of books about this guy.
Tons.
I never heard of this one.
And he's getting in fights with like Bond villains and stuff, like with like shark teeth, and just pretty crazy.
Is he an adult or a child?
He's an adult.
An adult. Okay, just a weird picture I saw then, I guess. Some interpretation of him made him look like, what is this? It looks like
Made him look like
kinda,
a mannequin.
yeah, it looks like a child, like a doll. Okay, that's odd. But in any case, yeah, sounds like an interesting, memorable character. What's the name of the series? Is it just called Pendergast, or is there a
It's
name?
it's just a recurring character in many of their series. They write so many series, I couldn't tell you the name of a specific one.
It just shows up in just the Preston and Child verse, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. So I think just even now we've kind of been touching on some of these questions of what makes a character memorable. The one you just mentioned has a lot of very visual qualities that do stand out. You character with the white hair and the white Mercedes, something about that just feels specific. Just feels like it sticks in your mind. Feels unusual. Quirks and unusual choices are some of the best ways that we can use to create memorable characters. Things that not everyone does. You know, the more that your character blends into the norm, the less they will stand out by definition. That can be part of the character. They could, you know, you could say like Doug Chambers looked just like anybody else, but he had this really interesting kind of interiority or something like that that makes them stand out instead. You can always say like, while on the surface they appeared like everyone else, they in fact had something more going on. Let me just fix my green screen. There we go. They in fact had something more going on. We can always be drawing on our experiences in terms of their speech patterns, syntax, or word choice as well. Thinking of how does the character speak or communicate, or if speaking is even their strong suit. You can have a character that never says a single word, and we just experience the whole book through their point of view. And that could be a really memorable character that we just, you know, they're unforgettable, even though they never say a single thing. Even though we may never even see them at all, their voice just kind of like becomes the book. And a lot of, like, for instance, what is the author's name is Nick. You wrote About a Boy and About a Boy, which is by Nick Hornby. That's right. Nick Hornby books have.
Nick Hornby.
That's right. Yeah. So his. Go ahead.
Funny story. He's one of my husband's favorite actors, and I was tutoring his nieces, authors. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
authors. I'm half delirious. And I was tutoring his nieces when he came around one day, because his niece was like, "Oh, because then you asked wanting to be an author," and then he's like, "Oh, my uncle's an author," and I met him. So I'm Nick. I said, "I'm Becky." We had a lovely chat. And he was a really nice guy. And I got home and told my husband, and he went, "Nick Hornby." I'm like, "Yeah." He went, "About a Boy, Nick Hornby." I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he's a really famous author, and I had no clue.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's only he has a bunch of hits, a bunch of really well-known books of pretty similar genre. They're pretty much going to be contemporary and coming of age type of stories, but High Fidelity is the other really popular one. In any case, he's sort of the way that he writes mostly first-person characters that have a lot of personality. We don't really spend that much time describing them. Like, it's not about the visuals, but their voice and their worldview just permeate the text and becomes one of the major selling points. So that's another way you can characterize in not just what they do and what they look like, but in the narration, the way that they tell or communicate their story. You could give your character something they want really badly. Like typically, a lot of the more memorable characters are going to be the ones that are sort of obsessed with something, or they're dedicated to some cause beyond all normal mortal efforts. Right? They will go farther than a normal person would to get what they want. They have big goals, and also maybe some more relatable, smaller, immediate goals. But in any case, they're driven. Memorable characters are usually driven by something. So you can make part of what makes them stand out their mission, their methods, or their tactics, or their abilities. You could give them some kind of secret or something they don't want to share with the world, and that might be a weakness, that might be a flaw, a relationship, something they did in the past that they're guilty of. All these things can deepen your character even further. And mostly we're going to say characters feel fully fleshed out and multifaceted when they have a combination of strengths, fears, vulnerabilities, and inner turmoil or contradictions of some kind. Things that seem to paint one picture of them, but then they defy that picture with a contradictory trait. Ultimately, the more that your reader is able to follow what's happening in their head, that usually helps make them more memorable too. Like if we can get a sense of not just what they're doing, but why, and we can come to understand their motivations as a key aspect of their characterization. So, especially if that motivation changes throughout the story, that could be a huge part of their arc. And in novels, where the interior is so much more centered than in movies and shows, that might be just as, if not more important. You could do a whole book where a character is just doing the same stuff, but the reasons why they're doing it change by the end. And that might be a monumental shift in a novel. That might be the kind of character arc that a novel can, well, only really a novel can carry. So your cast, central main three, these are your golden rule, your central trio, the triforce of your character design: protagonist, antagonist, central relationship. So books don't have to be really locked into a small cast the way that movies and shows do, because you're not, unless you really, really want your book to get adapted into a movie, in which case you should probably be writing like, I don't know, contained thrillers probably, because that's the most likely thing, or horror novels that are pretty easy to get those adapted. But horror doesn't also does not have to have a successful novel in order to be a success, but it helps. So if you're writing stuff that, if you want to write stuff that feels like it could be adapted, then you want to be limiting your cast and thinking about locations and stuff like that. But most of the time in novels, we don't have to worry about it. We can have as big an array of protagonists, antagonists, and central relationships of all kind if you want. And you can also mix and match and have these cross-pollinate with one another, meaning that your central relationship can also be the antagonist, for instance, or any combination of these things. So your protagonist is the character that we are mostly following, and we are investing most into their journey. That doesn't mean that they are the morally best person. That doesn't mean that the audience wants them necessarily to succeed more than anyone else. It doesn't really speak to their motives, methods, or tactics. Protagonist is interchanged sometimes with this word hero, but depending on who you ask, those mean different things, right? Not some would say, well, he's the protagonist, but he's not the hero, which just overcomplicates things. I kind of just use them interchangeably. Like, protagonist just means the character that we are investing in for the purposes of that story. The hero of your story is whoever we spend the most of our time with, and whomever the narrative sets us up, not necessarily to root for, but to follow every step of understanding their journey. Understanding the journey is more important than rooting for a character. That's kind of like a simplistic idea. Antagonist is the one that is... Oh, go ahead, sure.
I just want to ask a question on the protagonist, because you say root for or against this character. Audience ambivalence is not an option for this protagonist. You can still do a journey, can't you, where the audience is rooting for them, but then at one point in their journey, probably their lowest point, they do something that makes the audience for that moment turn against them.
Oh, yeah.
And then they redeem themselves again.
Yeah, these are more complicated emotional experiences and arcs, but you can absolutely build an arc where a character loses the audience for a while, and then maybe even earns their way back into the audience's kind of good graces. If you're like, it takes a really skilled author to kind of manipulate that intentionally and with a lot of like, you know, for the strongest impact. But some of the best books are ones where you're constantly reevaluating your opinion of different characters, for sure.
I suppose you're saying, yeah, that then the writer knows what they want the audience to feel about the protagonist at that given point, so it's still not ambivalent.
Yeah, I mean, you can create those. There are certain mystery novels and thrillers and things like this that make you really wonder, well, who do I want to win here? Who's hiding what? Like, that is also a style of story. Like, who can I possibly trust? But you have to kind of know the rules for that and understand that usually the audience wants one character to attach to at a time. And if they don't have anyone to like at all, then those experiences are hard to sustain, like for a novel length. It can work for a movie, like especially looking at stuff like The Hateful Eight, right? It's a bunch of miserable, horrible people in a building together, and they pretty much all kill each other by the end. But it's not sustained for hundreds and hundreds of pages. And so it is tough, and it's just mounting challenges up on yourself to go longer without giving us a core character to invest in, or to like create such a complex balance of characters that if the audience can't really root for anyone. Even in like grimdark ensemble stories, there are usually really easy characters to root for and get behind. Like you can have different opinions on every Game of Thrones character, but who would root against Arya? You know what I mean? Like, you have certain characters that it's like impossible not to root for sometimes. So it's just helpful.
Right. I suppose I was asking because, like, I'm planning with my character. We like her from the beginning. I mean, her goal is noble, but ultimately she's going to have to make a choice of, does she become a murderer to save her sister? And it's a children's book, so the obvious answer is no, she's not going to go that far. But I want the audience to fear that she might, because even though it repulses us, so I sort of want the audience to have that, you know, don't do it, because they're still rooting for her, but they're scared she might make the wrong choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And a character can get as close as you want to doing the bad thing. If they don't actually do it, the audience can forgive almost anything if you show just like a rational series of decisions that brought them to that point. We can forgive a lot too. Like, I think even if your character did do the murder, you wouldn't lose the entire. I mean, you might lose like kids in the audience, but you wouldn't lose if it was like an adult book. I've read lots of books where characters do terrible stuff like that, and I still am on board for them. So you can find a
Okay.
way to make it work.
She does not painfully, but take the life of an old rat to bring a kitten back to life.
Right, right.
But she's manipulated into doing that. So, but that's the time that I want the audience to be questioning, okay, is this actually right?
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, to answer the question and to circle back around, absolutely. Some of the best characters in all of fiction, they lose the audience and they win them back. And then they lose them and then they win them back. They just play with that in different ways. Gollum is like a great example of that. Okay. Let's talk about supporting characters and dynamics a little bit. So protagonist. Antagonist is the one that is opposing your main character's goals. Even if they're kind of on the same side, you can easily consider protagonist and antagonist. Like we talked about the book Room before, which is mostly the story of a young boy. And the antagonist in the book is his mom, even though they love each other, because the mom is always trying to get him to sort of leave his comfort zone and do things that he doesn't want to do. So for the purposes of that story, she is the antagonist. Protagonist and antagonist don't really have any moral assessment built into them. And then finally, we have central relationship, which could be a friend, romance, rival, mentor, basically any kind of dynamic you can think of, but their journeys are tied in with your protagonist's journey in an essential way, often because they are the ones that have the strongest opinion on what's going on, and your character cares about their opinion, meaning we can use the supporting character or the central relationship characters to evaluate your central protagonist's journey in their primary arc, right? If you have a character that's doing more and more evil stuff, well, maybe you give them a central relationship, a partner that's like, I don't know about all this evil stuff you're doing. And we come to understand that at a certain point, they will cross the threshold and they will lose that relationship, which kind of might represent their connection to humanity or goodness or something like that, right? So you can allow for relationships to sort of represent different aspects of the characters' lives. You might say, like, a common version of this is the action movie where you have the wife back at home or things like that, right? And often the superhero action guy lead, he doesn't want his wife to get involved in all the crime and action and car chases that he's doing. And at a certain point, he might distance himself from that relationship if he's saying, well, I'm going to lean in fully to being a spy. I no longer am going to be a family man. Mission Impossible series basically does this as we transition from 3 to 4, where in the third one, Ethan's wife matters a lot and is like kind of woven in with the plot and becomes like sort of targeted by like kidnapped by the bad guy at some point and all this. And then in the rest of the movies after that, he's kind of just like, nah, forget it. Like that was too much trouble. Like we check in with her in a couple of them, but he's like, nah, I'm just going to be a spy and not do that family shit anymore. So you can easily see how a relationship stands in for an entire facet or aspect of a character's life. You can see how a mentor, cutting off the relationship with your karate mentor is kind of saying, I don't care about karate anymore. I don't want to be a karate guy anymore. So relationships make for great emotional moments that represent your characters making choices and reaching turning points in their arc in various ways. There's lots of different types. We have mentors, foils, reflection characters, or mirrors that are supposed to, in some way, evoke or resemble the main character if they took a different choice, and thereby using the idea of the other characters to explore other aspects or paths that the main character could be taking. And then at the end of the story, say they've explored those different paths, and now they're going to try to find some kind of synthesis between those things. Can you guys think of any characters that are intended to deliberately mirror each other or resemble each other, or they have some core like similarity that is brought to the surface by the story?
Abby and Ellie. We're talking about books there.
Yeah. But if you want to draw a video game example to get us started, you can.
I mean, they're very much the same person. They have many of the same plot beats, experiences. They're both solely dedicated to revenge.
Yep.
They both like Ellie is the companion to a larger character, and Abby is the larger character with a smaller companion. So they kind of mirror each other that way. There's a lot, but my brain's a little bit distracted, so I'm not sure I can ramble about this like I ought to be able to.
All good. Well, yeah, those are a bunch of really clear parallels there. I mean, both characters also defined by their relationship to father figures. or both, but a loss of a father figure.
Yeah.
That we can say they're both reacting in different ways to the loss of a father figure. It's kind of an examination of grief. Like often you'll find the core theme of your story when you look at what the central relationship characters are dealing with in they're dealing with a different version of the same problem that the core hero is. So that's why it's often helpful to when you're designing your cast. Last animation class we talked about this, designing them with either matching or opposite traits to your protagonist. The antagonist and protagonist, therefore, if you think one of them comes from your hero is a rich, affluent background, well, then either your villain is also a rich, affluent background or comes from poverty. And either way, you can either draw comparisons between them that either highlight the flaws and problems with their origin, or you can pick a character that comes from the opposite background, and therefore you can do the same thing, but attack it from that different angle, right? Of saying, well, I'm poor, you're rich, you have everything, I have nothing. You can highlight the weaknesses in the main character's ideology, worldview, or position more easily from that standpoint. You can also do the whole they're not so different kind of like the characters themselves realize that they're not that different, and they weave that into the story somehow, right? Like they bring that up to each other and use that to try to manipulate or influence each other. You can go either way with it. Either the villain says we're not so different, so as to say the hero is maybe not that many steps away from being a villain like him, and therefore maybe we should just join forces, or you should not oppose me. We should be on the same side. You can also have the hero pull that on the villain. We're not so different, you and I. I think in the most recent Superman movie, we saw there's a scene kind of like this where Superman even goes, tells Lex, one of my greatest strengths is being human, and it's one of yours too. Like, sort of tell them we're not so different. You're a person. You could be like us. You could join the good side. So, lots of interesting scenes you'll get when the characters themselves actually notice and remark upon or highlight the distinction between them and the antagonists.
For characters where they're not an antagonist, protagonist relationship still mirror each other. You've got Harry and Neville in Harry Potter, where literally the whole prophecy predicted the one that would bring down the Dark Lord. It could have been talking about either Harry or Neville, and it just happened to be Harry because that's the one who Voldemort picked, basically. But Voldemort killed Harry's parents, but he also made Neville's parents go insane. So both Harry and Neville had to grow up without parents.
Right.
They both feel like they're in the wrong house. Harry feels like he should have been in Slytherin, or that it wanted to put him in Slytherin. Neville feels like he should have been put in Hufflepuff. They both show their greatest courage when they're both feel at their weakest.
Great. Yeah, that trope might, or that archetype might be something like the alternate chosen one, like the one that just didn't get picked, but who has most of the qualities of the central chosen one character.
And like poetically so, it's Neville who kills the second to last Horcrux. Obviously, Harry has to kill the last one, which is in himself, but it's Neville who does kills the second to last Horcrux that is keeping. So Voldemort's got like 7 Horcruxes or something, and Harry and Hermione are going around destroying them all because that's the only way to kill him, because it's his soul is in each of them. But the last one that he thinks he's got is Snape, and it's Neville that kills that. And then it's Harry that kills the final one.
Right. So he still gets to achieve some version of the chosen one kind of destiny, but not like not the primary one.
No, but he's crucial. Like he's the only one that could have done it, and so it sort of shows that actually Harry wasn't the chosen one in the sense of he was the one born to do this. He was one of 2 kids and was only the chosen one because Voldemort decided it,
Sure. That also felt, if I remember correctly, the early books did not really feel like they were setting this up. So this may have been one of those things that just like kind of worked its way into the story later. I wonder if that is the case or not. Maybe somebody who knows more about Harry can say.
He had the plan of Neville mirroring Harry from the beginning, and the idea that there would be some kind of prophecy surrounding the both of them. That's why she did it. We have it that Harry's parents were killed by Voldemort and Neville's parents were permanently made insane by Voldemort. Like she always had that. She just didn't know exactly. Like she didn't have the Horcruxes and all of that when she read the early books, but she knew that they were intrinsically linked because she had other characters that the editor told her, made her take out or reduce massively, and Neville was the one she fought for because she knew he was important.
Okay, thanks for that
Okay.
extra backstory. Alrighty, so, and thanks for everyone who's joined, by the way. We actually have a good sized group now. We are looking at dynamics and character introductions. I'll speak a little bit about dynamics, and then we'll look at some brand new introductions, which we'll need some volunteer readers for. So be prepared to do that. And for anyone who's joined us now, we will be sharing character introductions from your book later in class today if you want to. You do not have to. Alrighty, so dynamics. These are just the ways, or the almost like the rules by which different groups of characters interact. And that is going to have a lot of different forms. Like this looks completely different in different settings and circumstances. You know, dynamics when you're with one group of friends might be different than when you're with another group of friends. Even in real life, right? Like even just thinking of who are you at home? Who are you at work? Who are you at school? There are shows like the show Severance is all about this this sort of idea of becoming a different version of yourself in different groups, right? So I think some of the most common dynamics we see are romantic dynamics. Some genres are entirely based around this idea of courtship and getting to know someone and falling in love with them. That the courter and courtee is like a dynamic that goes through all of human history, right? Of course, it looks extremely different depending on culture and era and class and language and all these other things. But the core dynamic of person courting, person being courted, transcends every single culture. So you have to kind of understand if you're writing in another setting besides your own, like a science fiction world, how do these practices and relationships look and how do they differ, right? How does courtship look in a world where women can only have a baby every 10 years? How does a mentor-student kind of dynamic look like in a world where the student is encouraged to kill the mentor by the end of their tutelage? You can imagine how those dynamics that we understand from the real world will have been changed dramatically by the specifics and nuances of your setting. So things like rivals, love triangles, found family. What's another type of dynamic that you guys can think of maybe that you enjoy reading about? Just something that jumps to mind that you've seen before.
You know, I'm really a huge fan of British shows, the historical shows where it's like the you know, the lord of the house or the servants and the aristocrats have very different, lives, but they are just really intimately involved with each other.
Great. Yeah, this is called Upstairs, Downstairs.
Yeah. Great show, by the way, both of the remakes of the Upstairs, Downstairs.
Oh, just the if that's the name of the show, I guess I wasn't quite aware of that. I just meant that dynamic or that concept is usually referred to as upstairs and downstairs, meaning like different classes of workers or like masters within the same residence.
Exactly.
I like
So
I like
go ahead.
sorry. I say I like sibling dynamics, especially in middle grade and YA, but ones that are more natural, so they will fight amongst themselves, but hey, that's my brother, only I can call him a dog, that kind of thing. But sibling dynamics.
Exactly. Yeah. Only I can hit my brother. Luke, did you have a comic?
Yeah, how about the man apart? Either a character that is sort of like alone in the world, or they can't connect to the world because of some trait that isolates them.
Yeah, man apart. So on its own is not a dynamic because that's just one person, but the man apart / like new group could be a dynamic where it's like you have a character that is, or maybe we'll say loner versus socializers or something like that. Loner / socializer dynamic. And I don't know if socializer is a word, nor did I even spell it correctly if it were. But social, right?
Extending on that, extending on Luke's thing, it's normally a common thing with cop shows, but it's the whole, or also like superheroes. It's like, you know, Batman and then Robin. Batman, I work alone. And then Robin's like, okay, but I'm coming with you. Or in the cop shows, it's I don't need a partner. Well, you have to have one hit partner. It's that kind of, with that loner being
Oh, yeah.
made to work.
Forced partnership. Yeah, usually, or it can be a great modifier of the loner socializer dynamic.
You're taking your brother to the party. Mom.
Yeah, exactly. That touches on a couple of these. That's the sibling kind of dynamic thing. It's kind of a forced partnership too. Luke mentions the monster versus the pitchfork wielding townsfolk. Okay, so that dynamic would sort of be monster versus society, or like monster slash society, I guess. So like reject slash society.
Yeah, it's like
There's
Edward.
a new...
Mhm.
Sorry, Luke.
Go ahead, Becky.
I was gonna say there's a new type of dynamic that's coming out recently. It's like the film Her. It's the whole kind of human with computer AI slash
Oh yeah.
whatever, but it's that kind of, yeah.
Para slash techno social relationship.
Yeah, it's sort of becoming a new dynamic that's evolving because of the world we're living in.
Yeah, it's kind of parasocial in that it is not it's not with another person. It is with like an imagination of another person that is kind of like represented or communicated by technology. You're right, that's a new type of dynamic has recently dropped in the human experience. Or I guess a new way of seeing it. I mean, we've seen people have parasocial relationships with stuff for all of human history. Lou has also mentioned coworkers and teammates. Yeah, that may be sort of forced proximity if you hate your coworkers, or in some cases it may be a mentor kind of dynamic with certain supervisors taking on that mentor kind of role. There's a lot of different dynamics that
I
groups of
got
people
one
have.
more.
Go ahead.
You may have covered this already, but it's sort of the stranger in a strange land, or like the Dances with Wolves, like a forced to live among your enemies. I guess that's forced proximity.
Yeah, it's kind of the Jake Sully thing, or the
Yeah,
infiltrator, undercover cop kind of dynamic, undercover slash uh let's say niche community.
You've got man and pet as well, like, you know, I Am Legend, you know, man and his dog type.
boy and his dog.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Definitely. I'd say, yeah, and there's even nuances between like man and dog and girl and horse dynamics are slightly different because and boy and dog and man and dog are different too. Because and not that those have to be gendered or have to even be necessarily like age based, but in that they represent kind of like a slightly different edge to the dynamic. Like boy and dog usually include it's like the boy's first relationship with death when the dog dies too. So that's kind of like built into the boy and dog dynamic is this idea that the dog will die. Whereas man and dog dynamic is more like the adult is more used to that idea, and it's not so much about coming to terms with death as it is, although still that does come up in those stories. It's not like the primary focus as much. And then the girl horse dynamic is different too, because the horse is fundamentally like a more powerful animal than you, and as opposed to the dog, which you have to kind of raise up from when it's very small and vulnerable and stuff like that. So some nuances there. Like for instance, How to Train Your Dragon is a little closer to girl and horse than boy and his dog. But a lot of these tropes are so old that they don't even need to be gendered anymore. Let's look at some character introductions from books. Here we have a pretty simple, straightforward one that's using simile and metaphor to visually build out the character and also speak to his personality a little bit, but it's not that interior. This is largely an exterior description with just really clear, evocative, simple images. Does somebody want to read this one off for us?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is one of my favorite books, but if you wanted to do it.
We'll start with Becky. We'll have Dakota do the next one.
I love Jungle Book. A black shadow dropped down into the circle. It was Bagheera, the Black Panther, inky black all over, but with the panther markings showing up in certain lights, like the pattern of a watered silk. So like the pattern of watered silk. Everybody knew Bagheera, and nobody cared to cross his path, for he was as cunning as I'd never say it, as bold as the wild buffalo, and as reckless as the wounded elephant. But he had a voice as soft as wild honey dripping from a tree, and a skin softer than down.
Thank you for that. So we've got a kitty cat who can also talk, I suppose. Maybe, is it just Mowgli imagining that they talk? I'm not quite sure if they're actually magic or not.
I think they talk. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
He's Mowgli
What-
comes to understand animal language, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a little bit of intentional repetition. A black shadow, Bagheera, the black, inky black all over, all in the first sentence to sort of start with some the kind of like initial first impression. You can sometimes, especially with a visual description, sometimes you start with the most striking thing and you hit that point home. Like a tall man entered. He was massive. Like I can't even tell you how tall this guy was. And then you kind of get into more detail after that. So it can be, so the repetition can sometimes set that baseline first impression. Go ahead.
He did it as a rule of three, like a black shadow. It was Bagheera, the Black Panther, inky black all over. I feel like if it's two, it looks like a mistake. You know, or you've repeated the word. If it's four, it's too much. But three, it's that rule of three that we're like, it's done deliberately.
Yeah. Right. It feels like you're saying this is the character's defining trait, is that he's like a shadow walking around. And then we have a little bit of dynamic as well. Everybody knew Bagheera, nobody cared to cross his path. So we have kind of like the shared collective opinion of the character, how the character is perceived, how the character acts as bold and reckless, but with a soft voice, a kind of contradiction built into the character as well. You'd think somebody that were so bold and reckless would have personality that would reflect that, but soft spoken, a skin's like a softness to the character as well. Skin that's soft, personality that's soft, voice that's soft. This sort of combination of sharpness and softness in one package. Contradictions and things that stand against each other are often going to be a good point of characterization. You know, think of, you have a giant guy named Tiny. You have the little tiny cat named Hercules, like things like that, that will sort of just draw attention maybe to some trait of the character, or they might in some way be an aspirational name or trait for that character. Like we might be thinking that.
Right.
Go ahead.
I say, can I mention a character that's like that actually it plays into the story?
Sure.
It's a TV show. It's Disney's Owl House, and it's like a little creature called King. So if you look up
King.
Owl House King, see what it's like. He's like a little kitty cat with a skull on. There he is. Yeah. He's like a little kitty cat with this skull on. And he calls himself king because he claims that he had this whole kingdom that he ruled and it was taken away from him, and he's just cute little kitty cat. But actually, I don't want to reveal anything. But his name, he does live up to his name. Like, it's a joke in the beginning. He's this cute little kitty cat, but he totally lives up to his name of king.
Sure, yeah, character that seems weak but claims to be powerful, or seems powerful but claims to be weak. Those can create an interesting
and
question.
the thing about that I really like is that it's played as a joke. It's played as that trope of the small character with a big name that thinks they're bigger than they are. And then that trope is flipped from his head because actually he was telling the truth all the time and no one believed him.
Yeah, that is a fun trope. Thank you for sharing that. Dakota, why don't you read off our second one here? We have Arwen.
Let's go. All right. In the middle of the table, against the woven cloths upon the wall, there was a chair under a canopy, and there sat a lady fair to look upon, and so like she was in form of womanhood to Elrond that Frodo guessed that she was one of his close kindred. Young she was, and yet not so. The braids of her dark hair were touched by no frost. Her white arms and clear face were flawless and smooth, and the light of stars was in her bright eyes, gray as a cloudless night. Yet queenly she looked, and thought and knowledge were in her glance, as of one who has known many things that the years bring. Above her brow, her head was covered with a cap of silver lace, netted with small gems, glittering white. But her soft gray remnant had no ornament, save for a girdle of leaves wrought in silver.
All right, thank you for that. This is the Elven Princess from Lord of the Rings. Almost all of the Elven descriptions keep comparing them to stars and lights. And this creates this feeling of otherworldliness about them that in the movies is kind of replicated by the interpretation of this is sort of this lens flare that whenever an elf is on screen, you have light kind of shining in from behind them that makes it look like they're just this ethereal creature from another world, right? And that is a visual or like a cinematic way of kind of touching on this idea of, you know, the light of stars in the eyes, like always comparing them to skies, to horizons, to clouds, to supernovas and things like this, to galaxies. It gives them ultimately a very regal feeling, a sense that they are somehow elevated from those base and dirty creatures of the world, like the dwarves and the hobbits and things like this. We're also in close third person here. You can see that although overall the book has like this omniscient narrator kind of voice to it, in this passage we are in Frodo's head, right? There sat a lady fair to look upon, and so like was she in form of womanhood to Elrond that Frodo guessed she was one of his close kindred. So we are looking through Frodo's eyes right now. He says, "Oh, she looks like Elrond. She must be related to him," basically. And she's very like so beautiful, but not in like a sexual way. Beautiful like a painting is beautiful, is how the characters often describe the elves, right? They're beautiful like a statue, like something that should be in a museum. Any other thoughts on this close third description of Arwen?
Yeah, I can kind of talk about actually a little bit the starlight and the like lens flare thing they have going on. The explanation for that is long ago in Valinor in the First Age, the sun didn't actually exist. There were these two trees that cast light over the world, and anybody who looked upon the two trees of Valinor, that light then lived in them forever. That's why in the close-up shots on Kate Blanchett, you can see that they actually used a special lighting rig to show like a starlight effect in her eyes, is because she's one of the few living elves who still remembers the light of Valinor.
Right. Good details there. And every elf that is described has at least some of these qualities to them. This kind of idea of they are of the light and of the sky. Okay, let's look at a noir first person type of description. Do we have another volunteer? Nacho, you want to do this one?
I can read, sure.
Okay,
You
go
need-
for it.
Let's see, it's a little, the
Too small?
words are a little small. Let me just, okay, no, I just opening my Discord a little more. Okay. The first time I laid eyes on Terry Lennox, he was drunk in a Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith outside the terrace of the dancers. The parking lot attendant had brought the car out, and he was still holding the door open because Terry's left foot was still dangling outside, as if he had forgotten he had one. He had a young-looking face, but his hair was bone white. You could tell by his eyes that he was plastered to the hairline, but otherwise, he looked like any other nice young guy in a dinner jacket who'd been spending too much money in a joint that exists for that purpose and for no other. There was a girl beside him, Her hair was a lovely shade of dark red, and she had a distant smile on her lips, and over her shoulder she had a blue mink that almost made the Rolls Royce look like just another automobile. It didn't quite. Nothing can. The attendant was the usual half-tough character in a white coat with the name of the restaurant stitched across the front of it in red. He was getting fed up. "Look, mister," he said with an edge to his voice. "Would you mind a whole lot pulling your leg into the car so I can kind of shut the door? Or should I open it all the way so you can fall out?" The girl gave him a look, which ought to have stuck at least 4 inches out of his back.
All right. Thank you for that. So, very different style of description here. We're in first person this time. What do you guys notice?
I mean, he's a memorable character because he's got a, I mean, he's unconscious, I guess, but well, I know. I mean, he's awake. He's not unconscious. Yeah. So he's just really drunk. And is he driving? I guess he is driving, right?
He's in a parking lot. Just that's why it's
I mean, but
the
he
valet.
just, you know, the valet is trying to shut the door so he can drive away, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I like that
drunk.
first sentence a lot.
Go ahead.
I like the first sentence. That's pretty cool.
The very first one. First time I laid eyes on him. This one here.
Hmm.
Yeah, so this one is also setting the scene. Not only is it a character description, it's also putting us at a certain place and time. Something else you can do in first person is you can use a lot of your. We're doing characterization, not just the person being described, but the person doing the describing. Can somebody explain what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the narrator itself, he's really like dry with his words. He's really like beating down on this poor guy that's like drunk, but there must be a reason because it says the first time I met him. So most likely, considering this is like telling something that happened in the past, he has a beef with this guy in the future.
Sure, yeah, sometimes a character description might give us a hint as to where that relationship ends up going. If it is your POV character reflecting on this person, maybe their memories are tainted by or somewhat affected by the current opinion of this character. You know, when we go back to the first time I ever met my wife or something like that, you might kind of dress up that description a little bit more. It might feel more important. You might describe it as time seemed to slow down or things like that, which are really only true in retrospect. So we're always characterizing the person that is speaking in addition, or describing in addition to the character that is being described. You can create a very different picture there. Like if you have your character that's like every time they describe a cop, a police officer, they describe them as like a monstrous kind of figure, right? That really starts to build out a picture. Oh, they have a really strong opinion about police. At a certain point, with a sufficiently close psychic distance, we might be able to draw the audience in towards seeing the world as your character does. Okay, let's look at a Victorian one. This is by Anne Bronte. I wanted to get at least one female author in here. Let's look at the description of Mr. Lawrence from Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Any volunteer?
I guess I can do it.
Go for it.
Mr. Lawrence was gentlemanly and inoffensive to all. He had neither the opportunity nor the inclination for forming many acquaintances. And, of all he had ever known, I, judging by the results, was the companion most agreeable to his taste. I liked the man well enough, but he was too cold and shy and self-contained to obtain my cordial sympathies. A spirit of candor and frankness, when wholly unaccompanied with coarseness, he admired in others, or he admired in others, but when he could not acquire it himself, his excessive reserve upon all his own concerns was indeed provoking and chilly enough, but I forgave it, from a conviction that it originated less in pride and want of confidence in his friends than in a certain morbid feeling of delicacy and a peculiar diffidence that he was sensible of, but wanted energy to overcome. His heart was like a sensitive plant that opens for a moment in the sunshine, but curls up and shrinks into itself at the slightest touch of the finger or the lightest breath of wind.
All right, thank you for reading that. Again, trying to cover very different styles of description. This is like pretty far from the noir one we just read, right? This one is less about the physical and less about the first impression of someone than it is kind of a deep dive into his personality. What do you guys think?
I agree. Very Victorian, very like focusing on all these ineffable qualities.
And also a description you can only give when you know someone for a long time or quite well. We're not really trying to like, we're not in a specific moment here. We're kind of like thinking it's the main character describing this person throughout the entirety of their relationship. So saying like, for all the time that I've known him, this is like an overall picture of him rather than what he's doing at one specific time. And I think for all the complex language, it does get pretty clear. It's only really saying one thing. He's incredibly shy. He likes people that are confident, but he himself is not confident. And she compares him to a plant that wilts at the slightest touch, right? He just does not like confrontation. He is very inward, very sort of closed off.
Like many Victorian romantic characters, he just needs a good dose of vitamin D.
Sure. Yeah, he just needs the right woman to bring out the sensitive side. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
I mean, it reminds me to a lot of other books in that area. Like, also apart from that, is like the mentality of the character comes through really clearly. Like, she is a woman of that time because many women of that time thought that way.
Absolutely. Yep, this was written 200 years ago, so very different mental state, very different way of describing people or perceiving people, very different personality traits that are considered good or bad. He was too cold and shy and self-contained to obtain my cordial sympathies. Is that, I wonder if, is somebody obtaining your cordial sympathies one of the main things you look for in a person? We've got one more today. This is the most complex one of all, so I've kind of layered them from simpler to more complex. We're going to look at hero protagonist from Snow Crash, one of the funniest names of any character of all time. This one is omniscient, third person, but with the narrator, the omniscient narrator has really strong opinions about stuff and communicates in a very specific way that is intended to start world building through the character description as well. So not only are we learning about this one guy, we're learning about everything in the world through this characterization. Has anyone read this one?
Not me.
Well, if anyone should, it would be like
I think I started it, but yeah, it's really long, right?
it's pretty
Snow
long.
Crash?
Yeah, it's pretty long, but
Yeah.
it's really entertaining. I highly recommend it. It is
Mhm.
some
Okay, cool.
are a bit dense, but it's like a fun read. I mean, let's just check out this initial character. Nacho, do you want to take this one as well?
Sure.
This is hero protagonist. The pizza delivering samurai is the main character of this very famous, very, very critically well received book, if you can imagine it. This is not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon. This is like a literary cyberpunk book that's also kind of a parody of cyberpunk. Like to some extent, it is like taking all the cyberpunk that came before it and like expanding and blowing up all those ideas to like 100. That it is sort of like a deconstruction of cyberpunk and a parody of it, but it also just became one of the main canonical cyberpunk books. So this is like a lot of these tropes you'll see in video games and stuff today, right now. Like there's a very popular game, Cyberpunk 2020, from a couple years ago that draws so much from Snow Crash. Okay, let's launch into it with this. I believe this is the opening of the book. Like we just start with this, talking about the pizza samurai, known as his title is the Deliverator, but his real name is Hero, of course. All right, Nacho, whenever you're ready.
The Deliberator belongs to an elite order, a hallowed subcategory. Right now, he is preparing to carry out his third mission of the night. His uniform is black as activated charcoal, filtering the very light out of the air. A bullet will bounce off its arachnofiber weave like a wren hitting a patio door, but excess perspiration wafts through it like a breeze through a freshly napalmed forest. Where his body has bony extremities, the suit has sintered armor gel, feels like gritty jello, protects like a stack of phone books. When they gave him the job, they gave him a gun. The Deliberator never deals in cash, but someone might come after him anyway, might want his car or his cargo. The gun is a tiny aero-styled lightweight, the kind of gun a fashion designer would carry. It fires teensy darts that fly at 5 times the velocity of an SR-71 spy plane. And when you get done using it, you have to plug it into the cigarette lighter because it runs on electricity. The Deliberator never pulled that gun in anger or in fear. He pulled it once in Gila Highlands. Some punks in Gila Highlands, a fancy burbclave, wanted themselves a delivery, and they didn't want to pay for it. Thought they would impress the Deliberator with a baseball bat. The Deliberator took out his gun, centered its laser doohickey on that poised Louisville slugger, fired it. The recoil was immense, as though the weapon had blown up in his hand. The middle third of the baseball bat turned into a column of burning sawdust, accelerating in all directions like a bursting star. Punk ended up holding this bat handle with milky smoke pouring out the end. Stupid look on his face. Didn't get nothing but trouble from the Deliberator. Since then, the Deliberator has kept the gun in the glove compartment and relied, instead, on a matched set of samurai swords, which have always been his weapon of choice anyhow. The punks in Gila Highlands weren't afraid of the gun, so the Deliberator was forced to use it. But swords need no demonstration.
All right. Thank you for that. A lot
Oh
of info
yeah,
there.
should be Louisville slugger. 2 syllables.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. Good to know. All right, pretty silly idea, right? This is a world where the pizza delivery guys are given guns. We what else do we learn here? Like, how do we even get into everything that we find out about the world here, right? Like, we even as of the very beginning, we're sort of starting to see the points of reference that the narrator will use, and like not only the personality that the character has, but like the way that he describes things. We're seeing not only details about the character and his job and his equipment, and which gives us clues as to what he goes up against. Like, why do we have to give the pizza guys in this world bulletproof clothing? What does that tell us about the world, right? So it's sort of sometimes by talking around a subject, you can tell us a great deal. Sometimes by just saying, every morning when like the character ate his bacon and eggs, he made sure to take his sawed-off shotgun to work too. That can tell, even if you don't say why yet, you're sort of raising the question, what kind of world is this where these things are possible or necessary? We had an anecdote as well. So rather than spending too much time describing the character, we sort of see him doing stuff and kind of get a little clue as to the motivations that go into it and why he pulled the gun this time and what happened. And you get the sense that we are somewhat close to the character in terms of like we are framing things from his point of view, but he's not really giving us too much. It's sort of almost like the character talking about himself. We don't get too much of his talking about his personality or looks. Any other thoughts here as to this description?
Lots of black and edgy kind of language and colors. I particularly like the 5 times as fast as an SR-71. That's just absurd. Like it's clearly absurd, but it's taking itself so seriously, and I appreciate the hell out of that. That is my favorite.
Doesn't it also sort of date it, because if this were in the future, like nobody would even know what an SR-71 was, right?
Yeah, that is true. And I mean, that will kind of always be a factor when sci-fi authors are looking ahead, is sometimes they will kind of get like technology catches up with their book in some cases. And in other cases, this is largely credited as the inspiration for this book, and this author basically created the thing that inspired Google Earth. Like in this same book, the characters use a computer program that the engineers of Google Earth said was what they designed it based off of. So, and also the idea of the like MMO role, massive multiplayer online games and kind of metaverse spaces, that was also invented in this book. So some stuff you're like, it looks a little dated, and some stuff you're like, wow, you just got that exactly right.
When was this written?
I think 1991.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I think he used the term
Yeah.
metaverse in it. Maybe even coined it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You can use dated descriptions to sort of give your world a more retro futuristic aesthetic, like you'll see in like Fallout, for example.
Sure. Yeah, you can pick stuff that's based on flawed or dated science or older scientific principles, or you have characters that use force fields that are motivated by earth current, or any of these kind of like older ideas that are discredited or just seem silly now, but if you treat them seriously in your world, that sort of places it in a very specific stylized universe. All right, let's look at some character quirks, then we'll go into sharing your guys' character intros if you'd like to share about a paragraph of your character description. Let's start with the quirks, though. So I'll provide the details, and let's think of some underlying reasons behind these quirks. Why would the character act this way? What could this mean about them? And we're going to think of multiple different explanations for them, too. Example, what can we learn about a high schooler that carries a pocket full of tater tots everywhere he goes? What do you guys think?
Gonna eat those tots.
He's
Eat some of your tots.
he's a secret genius. He's cleverer than everybody, but they just think he's weird.
Okay.
He's prepared.
He's ahead of the curve, is what Luke is suggesting. It's
I'm feeling.
he's figured something out. He's got he's an innovator.
Yeah, I mean, if women can store bread rolls in their purse, why can't men store tater tots in their pockets?
In their cargo pants, exactly. Yeah, why can't they? Where's the gender equality world?
He only eats tater tots and he knows he's not going to get it at school, so he brings his own.
That could be as well. Yeah, your character maybe just out of scarcity, they feel like the only way they can get their favorite food or the food they need is by storing it up. What else?
I
could this be?
immediately go autistic. Because I'm
also be
thinking
that.
to myself, I mean, I didn't put anything in my pocket, but I used to always have things when I went to school, like I used to wrap up, get my parents to make mashed potato and I used to wrap them up and eat it like cold because I didn't like school dinners.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Often kids stealing or hoarding or hiding food is a bad sign that needs to be checked out. But sometimes kids just have preferences about the way that they want to enjoy their favorite thing. All right, that was sort of a silly example. Obviously, it's from the movie Napoleon Dynamite. A very quirky character, though, right? Let's look at some other quirks and imagine two possible reasons for each one. So the first one will be like your kind of first impression, like what would your very first thought be? And the second one, we'll think a little deeper and it can be anything you want. Let's start with this one. Every night, she prays forgiveness for the damage the human race has done to the earth. What's your first thought of who would do that and why?
Like an activist. She's, I don't know, spiritually connected to Mother Earth, and she really cares about nature, and so she says a prayer every night.
Okay, yeah, and prays forgiveness too, maybe even taking complicity in that and saying like, I'm part of the human race that has done this damage to you. And a character that is maybe it's sort of hinting that she's motivated by guilt in some way.
I went a lot more literal than Luke.
Okay.
I went, it's evil Pandora from like Pandora's box.
It's evil.
So she literally,
Go ahead.
it's Eve.
Oh,
It's
it's Eve.
like Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Or it's Pandora, as in she's praying for forgiveness for the damaging race on the earth because in Pandora's box, you know, she opened the box and let out all of the evils of the world in the Greek myth Pandora's box.
Sure. Okay. So a
Like-
character that actually feels personal responsibility for the bad things happening in the world somehow.
Well, in the myth, she is
She is.
responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah. She literally opened the box and let all the evil out.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I went
know that.
immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went immediately. Well, it's the woman responsible.
Yeah, in certain mythologies, there is the story of a kind of original sin or things like this. That we have one person that is responsible for the bad things happening somehow. Let's do the next one. How about he never leaves the house without spritzing himself with a.
For the
Oh,
opposite.
do you have? Oh yeah, my mistake. Go ahead if you have an idea for the opposite. Go for that one.
Um, she is a robot monk, and every night she climbs the step of this temple and offers a prayer to like humans have been wiped out because they did so much damage to the earth, and so we have a robot priestess offering this prayer on their behalf.
Okay, so yeah, this would be forgiveness not for something that she is complicit in, but for someone else, like apologizing, in the abstract way, saying maybe we'll do better now that the humans are gone. Good thoughts there. Thank you for that. Let's look at the second one. How about never leaves the house without spraying himself with one very particular lavender cologne? It's got to be the same brand every time.
It's
First impression.
the woman he's crushing on. It's her favorite scent, lavender.
Okay, but for someone else that likes it. So he's doing it because he's trying to win someone over or get them to enjoy being around him more. Maybe it's not his own preference. Other thoughts?
Or it reminds him, lavender just makes me think of mums and grandmothers. So it reminds him of his mum or his grandmother.
Sure.
Maybe he recently lost them.
Yeah, scent is very strongly tied to memory. Sometimes you will see people carrying around things that belong to someone that is no longer around, that they can just smell it now and again and get that memory out of it. Anything else?
I'd like to add, say for instance, Sequoia lavender is very calming, so he hates traffic. So every time he goes out and he goes into traffic, he makes sure that he puts the lavender on so he's calm as he gets through it.
Okay, sort of a
Nice.
self-medicating calming technique. You see that?
Yeah, I was gonna think along the same lines. He's actually afraid to leave his home. What is that called when you're agoraphobic? And this particular lavender blend is the only thing that lets him leave his house.
That's fantastic.
Sure, like a comfort blanket that they would use to psych himself up or motivate himself to go. I could see that. All right, let's pick anyone have a weird idea? What's something out of the box?
Yeah. It forms a magical barrier that keeps the demons that are hunting him from possessing his mind and taking control of his body.
Okay, yeah, maybe we got a little garlic powder or silver in there or something like that. Be a magical reason.
I was just gonna go for something similar, but he's the monster. He's like some kind of being and he's in human form. But the smell would be a dead giveaway, so and the only thing that can mask it is lavender cologne.
Sure. Okay, we cover up the brimstone or the scent of the grave that lingers to the monster man. That's a fun one. How about she carries a bottle of spray paint, but only to correct spelling mistakes in graffiti that she sees?
That's so weird.
Yeah.
She's a teacher.
Yeah, she's a grammar Nazi, but the equivalent for spelling.
Yeah, she's a teacher who insists on. I mean, I haven't done it with spray paint, but I did that all the time at school when kids would write things on the whiteboard just before we come in. And I'd go in and I'd go, I'm very disappointed in you. You've done the wrong yaw. Let me give you an education on the correct yaw.
Right.
Maybe she's like a gang leader and the gang has had a recent rebranding, so she has to keep an eye out for,
We want to be
tags.
smart now. We want to seem like the literate gang now, so no more spelling mistakes. That's trashy.
People called Romans, they go to the house.
People called Romans? What is that
From Monty Python with Brian.
It's been too long since I've seen it. Is there a gag about correcting graffiti spelling in that one? I feel like
There is, yeah. Brian makes some anti-Roman graffiti, but he uses the wrong Latin grammar, and so John Cleese as a Roman comes along and makes him correct it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly the trope. The show, there's a Danish drama about a school teacher, which was just called Rita as well, which has a great main character. The opening scene, if I remember correctly, is she's smoking in the toilet stall at school. she sees some graffiti that says like Mrs. Rita sucks, and she just corrects the spelling of it with a pen before she goes. That's a nice, such a nice show, and great characterization all throughout. All right, let's do a couple more. Oh, unless does somebody have a weird pitch for the spray paint idea? Anything weirder than what we've come up with on the first impressions? It's already kind of weird, I guess.
Maybe she went through the city leaving magical sigils or like spells behind, but she got the spell wrong, so she has to go back and correct it.
Oh, okay. So something in the magic system that requires you to do this in order to make it work or to avoid some kind of arcane disaster. All right, I can see that. Let's do, he drives a completely different route to work every single day.
He used to be a spy, and so now he's ultra paranoid.
All
Or an
right.
undercover cop.
Or maybe
or
it's spy,
any
right?
kind
Like,
of-
yeah, if you're a former, I could see the habit not leaving. But if you're a current, if you currently are someone worried for your safety all the time, I can see that that would be something that really sticks with you. What else?
Just trying to avoid his ex-wife.
Okay, you've got a stalker or someone that's staking you out, pursuing you, trying to serve you divorce papers or something like that.
What if it's literal, like the work changes? He drives a pretty different route to work every day because work's not in the same place every day.
Yeah, kind of a mundane explanation, but could simply be that his job requires him going to different places.
You make it mundane. I'm the one that was thinking the actual building moves location every day.
Oh, you meant the same location, the same structure has relocated. That's pretty funny. Okay, we've got a house moving castle kind of commute going on. Any other thoughts on driving a different route every day?
Maybe he's just got OCD.
Yeah, a lot of pretty much any character quirk we could just be like, oh well, that person has OCD, but you're right. In especially when it comes to daily habits, then we see people with different conditions that might have a very specific preference as to how it should be done. Either meaning it's always the same, or it always being different, or something like that.
Maybe he works out of his car and just gets inspired by different environments.
Okay, I like that one too. So the vehicle is the place of work, and therefore the route to work is really just him walking to the car. But then afterwards, he gets to go wherever he wants. Yeah, I was really enjoying the show. There's only 2 episodes of it now on FX called The Lowdown with Ethan Hawke, which is a sort of like southern neo-noir kind of mystery show. And the main character, there's a lot of great characterization we get just when the character is driving around, and it just shows the stuff in the back of his van, right? You see like a sleeping bag, you see a bunch of stacks of files, you see a bunch of loose like beer cans and soda cans and Diet Cokes and stuff like that. You'll see like a few shell casings rolling around. It's like, oh, we just learn a lot about someone from what you see of their work vehicle. All right.
If it's
any,
like
any other
everything
ideas?
everywhere,
Oh, go ahead.
what if like everything everywhere all at once, and in order for your workplace to get to your workplace in an alternate universe, you have to do certain actions that you calculate before you get there.
Okay, so again, there's kind of a magic system at play where in order to utilize it properly, he has to drive certain routes, or maybe it's like a spell that's being cast by the route that he drives, or some weird occult thing. Very creative take. All right, we've got one more. She refuses to even look at a picture of her country's prime minister. She turns them around to face the wall when possible.
It's her dad, and she hates him.
Okay, there we go. If it's your dad, you can't get away from seeing him everywhere, so she tries to
Gonna
turn him
say
away so she doesn't have to feel like he's watching all the time. Go ahead.
I was gonna say ex-husband or wife, yeah.
Okay, so someone that you have a negative personal memory of that you don't want
I,
to.
I do have
Go ahead.
I do have the crazy one, but we'll do the mundane one first.
Okay. Any other relatively reasonable explanations for why someone might do this?
Um, she feels like the portraits are looking at her, like following her with their eyes or something. Paranoia.
Okay. They're creepy. Yeah, maybe the prime minister is creepy to her, or maybe just the particular portrait is, or maybe she's in a whole, she's locked in a haunted house that has nothing but portraits of this guy all around.
She
And
killed
there's
him.
Or she ran against him and he did something kind of nefarious to win. And so,
Okay, great. Yeah, an old opponent. So I'm ashamed or I'm embarrassed when I see it, or I'm, that I lost to him, or maybe I'm disappointed in myself that I did defeat him, sort of thing. I think Dakota mentioned she killed him. That could work too. She's an assassin who maybe is not proud of what she did. Did I hear Becky again?
yeah, can I do the crazy one now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's like the Demon Headmaster, which is a British book. Basically, he has the power to control the entire country, mind control to make everyone vote for him. And she's one of the few people who knows that and has managed to avoid being mind controlled. He can even do it through his pictures. So she can't look at him, otherwise she'll forget that he's mind controlled everyone.
Oh, okay. So it's not only a small act of rebellion, but it's also a way to avoid having his powers enacted on her.
Yeah.
Pretty creative. Thank you
Can't
for that.
help,
Go ahead.
can't help but laughing every time she sees one, because somebody pointed out that the folds on his neck resemble a part of a woman's anatomy.
Okay, there's something funny about his appearance that she's worried she will laugh and maybe it would be awkward, or we live in like a North Korea style dictatorship where if you laugh at the picture, you're in legal trouble. Any last ideas?
He's
Go
a
ahead.
he's a reptile. She can see it. And no one believes us. No, she just can't even look at the pictures because it freaks her out. But she can see the reptile in his eyes.
Okay. A
I
shape-shifting
got
lizard man.
Yeah, you know
another
the
crazy one.
theory. Go on.
Um, the portraits are alive, Harry Potter style, and the prime minister is like super sensitive to light and prefers the darkness or something like that. He has an eye condition, so
Oh,
she's just making them comfortable.
it's nice. Okay, just common courtesy to the paintings of the sensitive eyed prime minister. All right, creative answers, guys. Thank you for that. All right, so I hope that we've at least covered a lot of the essentials on not only how we can define and differentiate characters from their role, from their dynamic, and from their appearance and personality. The quirks that make up their personality, that make them, who they are, things that only they would do or that feel specific. If you incorporate all these things together, you can create characters that will not only serve their function well, but also they'll live beyond the story and they feel like they will continue living in that world after we close the final page. All right, does anyone want to share a character introduction paragraph?
I did.
I think Luke posted as well in the assignments channel.
Oh,
It's like 400 words. I'm not.
Was I meant to put it in the assignments?
It's the whole
it'll be a
thing.
little easier to find them if they're all together. Yeah, if you don't mind reposting it. All right. Yeah, looks like Luke was the first to share. Do you want to start us off?
I guess. What, you want me to read it aloud or something?
Oh, if you want to.
Oh.
Or you can just post it for people to read on their own if you don't want to read it.
Kind of having a hard time seeing it on your screen.
I can't find the assignments channel.
Documents, assignments.
Yeah, just above the meeting room. I can tag you in it. That's helpful. There you go.
It's a bit more than a paragraph, but I'll get through it. More vultures gathered. The two smaller circles joined into one great one. Whatever they were in circling, Enzo was almost there. Delirious from the heat, the sand seemed to ripple in great ocean waves all around him. Memories blended together with the present. Then there he was. A man lay naked, face down in the sand. The sand around him was scorched glass in strange crystalline patterns. Maybe he'd been struck by lightning. He looked totally lifeless, but none of the vultures came close. Enzo croaked. Hello? A hot, dry stab chafed his throat. He cleared it and tried again. The man didn't budge. Enzo could see a dark splotch that expanded from his naked back onto the ground, dried blood. Enzo hurried to the man's side. Something was still smoking inside a wound. A bullet? Whatever it was, it seemed to spin and sputter as if trying to drill through to the other side. Without thinking, Enzo pulled the pliers from his waist and set to work, pulling it loose. He probed into the hole. The projectile was there, a metal cylinder, still spinning rapidly. How bizarre it was. Enzo couldn't grip the thing, but he probed the pliers under the tip and scooped it out with a great pop. Like a tiny spinning top, the bullet drilled into the dirt. Then with a loud crack, it burst into black splinters. Was this cursed ammunition? It was smaller than Enzo imagined. The man groaned, rolled his head sideways. His sandy brown hair was long, matted, and flaked with layers of filth. Hello? Asked Enzo. Are you alive? The man's voice sounded confused and garbled. Chronological, seen am helloing voices, he gibbered. Sir, said Enzo, you've been shot. I think the bullet might have been cursed. The man stood upright. Fresh blood flowed from his wound, but he didn't seem to notice or care. Help you, he said, his penetrating green eyes piercing Enzo. You need help? Needinglessness, helpingness, said the man. What? Can I help you or not? Eunice, non-existent. The man extended a palm, as if from nowhere a honeybee landed on it. Link's doingness, non-chronological. Fear hate, beingness. What? I don't understand. Where are your clothes? Did somebody rob you? Enzo considered that maybe somebody shot this man for a reason, but why would anyone waste a cursed bullet on some poor lunatic? Before he knew it, the man was gone. Not a sound, just vanished. The honeybee drifted away into the sky. I guess we could stop there.
All right. Thank you for that one. Pretty crazy character you've introduced for us here. Maybe a guy you're sort of saying is not quite a normal human, maybe some sort of other being. Is he a demon or a robot or something like that?
He's a non-corporeal entity composed primarily of bees.
Right. One of those.
Yeah.
I like the dialogue that you use to characterize him, which is very
Sorry, I
specific.
said corporeal. I meant to say temporal. He experiences time non-linearly.
Ah, okay. And you have not spent as much on his physical look besides saying he's naked, but done most of the characterization through his dialogue and through the interaction between them. So here we see that he speaks in almost nonsense phrases that resemble real words but aren't quite real. Your character seems really confused and baffled by this. This is new to him. He does not know whatever this kind of creature is, clearly.
Yep. And then he's gone for quite a while until he comes back near the midpoint.
Okay, very enigmatic character that you don't want to give too much detail on because the character just wouldn't know all these things about him. So I think he's meant to be as mysterious to him as he is to us, I would guess, right?
Yeah, we get a clearer explanation in the end of the book. Not quite sure how I want to do it, but basically Enzo sort of figures it out. Maybe they link minds or something. But yeah, it's the events from his timeline, sort of like he's basically helping Enzo now for something Enzo did in the future, but it's kind of like masked by the fact that Enzo is helping him now. I don't know how to explain it, but
kind of like
think
in
you get the idea.
in Arrival, there's a plot point kind of like this where it's like, we're going to help you now for
Yeah.
something you'll do in 3,000 years.
Yes.
Love that stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's try to get through everyone. So we'll have Nacho up next.
Okay. Dacunia shows me a photograph I already know by heart. A black and white portrait of a bound man with wild gray flecked hair. His nose is crushed. His left cheekbone is caved in. One eye is grotesquely swollen shut. The other gazes coldly into the lens. Black blood blossoms across his white linen shirt. I've studied every centimeter of this image. It's burned into my retinas. When I lie awake at night, it returns to me clear as day. This photograph started everything. It's why I'm here.
All right. Thank you for that. So here you've spent most of your focus on the there's like about a line of description. He's an older guy with grayish hair. Most of the emphasis, though, is on the injuries and on the
Mhm.
kind of the gory look, which tells us that that's kind of the thing that stands out most to your character. It might even be why this has such a great impact on him. It's because it uh, either is somebody that he cared about or came to care about. Maybe even just from seeing this, it creates that sense of sympathy for this person, or it motivated him to act based on the cruelty displayed here. Was that why you were sort of putting the focus on the injury rather than the guy himself?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is sort of a transition into the next chapter where we're then gonna, that man in the photograph once, now we're gonna kind of go into a scene with that character before he was beaten up.
Right.
And he was like a surrogate father kind of, teacher for the protagonist.
I see. Okay, so you start with the image of him all beaten up to sort of create that sympathy and say, uh, or to ask the question, what happened to this guy? Who was this to the hero? And then when we go into the flashbacks to sort of learn who this was to the character. Is that right?
Yeah, and the implication is that the magistrate is showing him the photograph, sort of like implying that he's the one who did that to this person in the photo.
Oh, got
And
it.
so it's sort of a little bit of a mystery, like, well, what exactly happened? And why is this so, does he feel guilty for beating him up? Or, I mean, at this point, we don't know exactly who that is, but
Hmm.
it's, I guess the idea is just, okay, this photograph is really important. And he already knows the photograph. So why does he already know it? Trying to like raise some little questions.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm.
Becky, would you like to share yours?
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of pretense, this is the second chapter of my new rewrite. But it's the first point of view of my secondary character. So we already know that this is a city under the ocean, and the apex is the top sphere where the rich people live.
Okay.
Um, Pandora wasn't supposed to be in the maintenance sector. She definitely wasn't supposed to be halfway down a ladder, balancing on a surface strut with her shirt caught on a stray bolt. But the view was worth it. This was the bottom of the apex sphere, and where all the fissures were placed. She wasn't there to watch the schools of glinting fish being caught. No, she was waiting for something better, something that was said to have died in the radiation centuries ago. Pandora's comms pinged. Where are you? Get to the hospital now. It's your training day. It was Mum, and she sounded angry. Pandora ignored it. It was Mum's idea for Pandora to train as a doctor, not hers. And anyway, Pandora was sulking after all. Emily Bennett and her friends had been teasing Pandora as usual. No one ever believed Pandora. But with this one, she could actually prove she wasn't lying. She really had seen a manta ray when she was here last.
All right. Thank you for that. And you're saying this is the first time we meet this character?
First time we meet Pandora, yeah. Theo's our main point of view character. Pandora's our secondary.
Got it. Okay. So, I we're definitely getting some good information on world building from this passage here, like a sense of what her job is and what she's actually interested in, the fact that she's not really into the idea of being a doctor. So we're seeing some values of the character. A lot of the time in younger age group books, they will have a little more physical description for that. I'm guessing you maybe place that later. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really hard when you're in that close third person. It's like first person to naturally get. But yeah, when she actually sees her brother, then I describe because she describes herself compared to her brother
Yeah.
is more like her mum and she's more like her dad.
It's usually a pretty good way to do it. You see that pretty often, where
Yeah.
instead of doing the mirror thing, you will instead pick another character and compare your hero to them and say how they can never measure up to that guy. Like he was 6 feet tall, I was only 5'4". Like you can kind of like find a nice way
Yes.
to make your
It's-
way to the description without front loading it.
This one I wanted to show her personality first.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing.
She is a child, by the way. It's meant to be childish.
I assumed it was a child's
Yeah,
children's book.
yeah. But she was sulking after all. It's like, yeah, she's a child.
All right. Looks like we have, is it just the one more, Vicky?
Yes.
All right, are you ready to read and share?
Yeah, I hope my internet doesn't cut out, but hopefully it won't.
All right, whenever you're ready.
The light at the center of the stage shone bright overhead. Alice was in the spotlight, holding her position, tired, more tired than she'd ever been in her life. But that tends to happen when you've gone away 10 years from the stage. Music began, and she pushed through the first few steps, trilling elegantly, doing every step with uncanny accuracy, showing the flowing and thoughtful movements, dancing with grace through the pain with a wide smile. Each second that passed made her performance more vivid, as life returned back to her, fed by the excited energy of the audience. A literal statement. Not long ago, she'd figured out what fed her: human souls.
All right, thank you for that. Quite a big bomb dropped at the end there, which is that your character eats human souls. I think we're sort of seeing a bit of her personality or things that she enjoys, like clearly is kind of swept away by the music. Clearly is a very skilled dancer. And also a bit of backstory, being away from the stage for 10 years, but your character's kind of finding the love for it again or finding the music again. I'm not quite sure if she's an adult or a child or who Alice exactly is, but
She's 27 at this
Okay.
point of the story, but I'm going to point that out like later.
okay. So yeah, looks like you're focusing mostly on the interior experience of the music here. Thank you for sharing this. We are to just our last couple
Thank you.
minutes. Oh, Joyce, did you want to read yours? Are you here, Joyce? Or are you still in the car? Okay, we'll check with Joyce next time. We have 5 minutes left for questions. Oh, go ahead.
I didn't know how to get off mute. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So am I pasting it in the chat what
Oh,
I'm reading? So you
I can
guys
get it.
see it?
I got it
Or
here. You,
what
yeah,
are-
you could. I brought it up. So
Okay.
yeah, why don't you just
Oh, thank you.
find
Okay.
your about a paragraph
So,
of character description whenever you're ready.
Okay, sorry, can I move down to chapter 2? Sorry, I wasn't
Oh.
prepared for that section. Sorry.
Okay. Is it the highlighted one?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, my first word that highlighted, sorry, my frustration. My frustration turned to empathy when I rounded the trunk of an enormous Douglas fir and caught sight of John snapping photos of Abby propped up against a neighboring tree, eyes wide open and dried foam under her nose and upper lip. Its massive trunk spanned 5 to 6 feet in diameter. The size hid the body from view of the nearby hiking path. He focused his camera on the empty Neuromist cartridge that had tumbled onto her lap. The flash lit up her hand against the leaves, revealing telltale residue on her fingers. I forgot the visceral raw punch of a victim's last moments. Seeing someone so young with promising life ahead made even the hardest detective's stomach lurch. I took a deep breath, appreciating the positives of working cold cases. No dead bodies with vacant eyes, looking up at you, pleading for help. Or in this case, perhaps regretting their choices. That's it.
All right. Thank you for that. So was this the introduction of the character of John or the character of Abby? Or is it both?
Abby, it's where they find her in the woods. Yeah.
Abby. Okay, so we're finding a murder victim, it sounds like.
Yes.
Or perhaps murder, but someone that has passed away here. All right.
Yes, a body.
Right. Okay, and you're also doing a bit of characterization on your POV character as well, sort of describing his relationship with, crime scene victims and the way they make him feel, the way this makes him feel. So a good image not only of the character that we're meeting, but also tells us some important things about your lead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. All right. So we are at the end of this class. Any questions that you guys want to ask in these last few minutes?
Do you have any tricks if we don't have a character description yet, but we're trying to get one? Like maybe a template or something we could use that might be helpful.
I'm not aware of any templates for this kind of thing, but we could kind of make one of our own if you wanted to just like make a little list of things to touch on. Let's ask, what are some good starting points for a character description? We have physical. So that would be, can I write the word physical? There we go. Physical. So that would be looks, body language, and speech, everything on the exterior level. What did you say? One more time.
Age.
Age, okay.
Is age?
Yeah. Age, clothes, style, hair / makeup, all of these things. We would have the behavior. Behavior, which would be choices they make, the vocabulary, the way they treat others, dynamic. What would be a third category here besides physical? Behavior,
Beliefs.
beliefs, okay. So interiority.
Yeah. So like you got the obvious of political and religious beliefs, but also beliefs about their self, beliefs about the world. So depending on what's relevant to your story, it might be that you're writing a ghost story, so you'd need to know whether your character actually believes in ghosts or not at the beginning of the story. That might be crucial. Whereas if you're writing a love story, it doesn't matter if they believe in ghosts or not. But yeah,
Sure.
that kind of like.
Okay, so yeah,
And then,
we have
like,
other
you-
values and self-image, how they see themselves and see their role in the world. Go ahead.
And then, like you were talking about earlier, the dynamics they have with other people, like who's the person that they'd go to if they really got stuck, who's the person they trust most, who's the person they fear most, how do they react to confrontation from different people, so just like dynamics with other characters.
Sure. All right. So I think that's a good starting point. There's not really a template, as in, I don't think even within a specific genre or style, there's not something you can just copy paste and start with, but maybe just pick one of these three categories and say, this is what I want to really highlight for this character. Like, what is it that stands out about them the most? Is it what they believe? Is it how they act? Or is it what they are, like what they look like and what the visuals, the clothes, the style, and the exterior stuff like that? And your character will eventually reveal a combination of all these things. But I think when you first introduce them, maybe pick one to sort of center your first impression of them around.
I personally find it really helpful to sort of cast my character. So in my head, I think if there were an actor, not necessarily famous, but like sometimes I'm known to go through extras, like acting extras, to find the right like look for my character. I know what it's going to be, but when I see it, I'm like, yeah, that's the look, just to kind of help visualize. So that can help if you're stuck on like how to describe them.
Sure. Yeah, that can be useful. Find some real reference images. All right. Everyone ready to write their next chapter? Any last questions?
At some point, Connor, but it's a big question for this. I was hoping to chat get your opinion on the magic system because I've been doing research into the characters and I need to find a way to it's a very cultish magic system. I need to try and keep it family friendly, kid friendly, because it's not like I'm not doing alchemy because
Okay.
that's not what this person's looking for. So at some point I'd like to chat with you about that.
Okay. Well, we're at the end of this class, but we can find a time to do that soon, either in another class or we'll make some time. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other last questions, then we'll wrap up for today. We have some brand new classes coming up. First of all, this series is continuing in Saturdays 12 to 2. So next week is Dialogue, October 4th, Saturday, next Saturday. And then this upcoming week, we have a brand new class this upcoming Friday on Creature Features. Creature Feature, and that's Friday 6 to 8 p.m. And then the week after that, we have Found Footage. And these are both going to be on Script Camp. And those are obviously screenwriting, movie style writing classes, but maybe there's something that you can utilize in your novel writing as well. So check those out. Next 2 weekends in that slot on the Script Camp class. And I think we're wrapping up in our current time slot on the Sunday boot camp as well, which is tomorrow from 11 to 1. I think that this is our last class in that series. So soon we'll be starting out the new one there. We'll probably be running a few additional one-offs in that time slot before we start the new camp, but you will be updated. Keep an eye on the announcements channel and on the calendar, and you can check the website, which is skillca.mp, Skill Camp. Thanks for being with us, guys. We'll see you soon at your next Script Camp class or events or WordCamp.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.